there was a lot of talk coming into this major about FlyQuest and how good they're looking, and obviously that has paid off in spades. They go 3-0 for the first time, and for the first time in a very long time as well, they make it deeper than the opening stage of the major. Obviously, since the new format has been announced, where we have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, as opposed to, what it was called previously, FlyQuest have gone and kind of bombed it in the major. I mean, bombed it is a harsh term, I guess, considering they would go 2-0 and then end up losing 2-3. So they didn't necessarily bomb it. They didn't go out 0-3 in the same way that maybe some of the Asian teams have done at this event. But they definitely had struggled at majors, and so it's very nice and refreshing to see that change coming through for FlyQuest, and obviously all of those conversations that were had prior to the tournament are now, again, like I said, sort of paying off in their fruits as they're coming in, as the coach seems to have had a very, very positive impact on this team. The role changes, the map pool changes, everything seems to be working out nicely for FlyQuest, and it seems like, I think we're kind of at that point now where maybe FlyQuest have retaken that position within the Asian esports circuit, or the Asian Counter-Strike circuit, that Australia and New Zealand, A&Z Counter-Strike, had kind of held for a very long time prior to this point, right? This is probably like, 2-year period, I guess, 2 or maybe even 2.5, 3-year period more recently has felt like it's been dominated, obviously, by Mongolia. There's no doubt about that, but China as well. And that is somewhat unusual, actually, in the history of Counter-Strike, right? If we go back in the history of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it was primarily, actually, A&Z Counter-Strike and Chinese Counter-Strike, and more than likely A&Z Counter-Strike above Chinese Counter-Strike for a very large portion of that, with the likes of, the Vox Immunity days being the top teams in Asia at the time, or close to the top teams in Asia at the time, and then obviously Renegades, for the most part, being the top team in Asia for their tenure as well. They were contested by the original Mongols at times, and by Tai Lu at times, and occasionally by Vici here and there. But for the most part, ANZ CS actually, I feel like, had been, for the last 3 years, probably been in its worst state in terms of results, even internationally, and results particularly within the Asia circuit, and how they compared and ranked to their closest competitors. But now, based on what we've seen in stage 1 of the Budapest major, it would seem like maybe that is going to change somewhat. So, as you can see, obviously 3-0 for FlyQuest. That's going to be the bulk of this video. That's going to be the bulk of the discussion here. But more importantly, or maybe less importantly, but I guess more importantly if you're an Asian CS fan, the fact that Rare Atom and Lynn Vision have both gone 0-3 here. Obviously, we do have Hun still in the conversation in this matchup against Imperial, but they're going to have to go through 2 matches to make it any deeper in the tournament. It's unlikely that that will happen, although we do wish them the best. But yeah, I kind of wanted to highlight this on FlyQuest, and I wonder how far they can go now, obviously having had a really, really good start to this tournament. A lot of confidence, a lot of momentum. It feels like they've finally broken that curse, right? This is like the 3rd time running where they've gone 2-0, and this time they've managed to make it 3-0. And you could say, yeah, the opponents that they face here in Fluxo were not exactly the strongest of competition. In fact, all of those 2-0 matches looked like they were very, very achievable. If FlyQuest would have played against Métis, or if they would have played against NRG, those felt like very, very winnable games for FlyQuest. But I think it's less about the team that you face in this particular instance, and more about the fact that they have actually managed to get essentially that monkey off the back, right? Where they get to the 2-0 and then they go 2-3. So overall, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the confidence level for these guys, it's got to be sky high at this point. It seems like there's been a bit of a positive trend from pretty much everybody on that roster in terms of the role shifts. I've certainly seen a lot more out of INS. Vexite's looking fantastic at the moment. There's no question about his form. Regali is solid and stable as usual. And then I think you can kind of just round it out with good, solid performances from JKS, which we very much expect. He hasn't necessarily dropped off in any significant way or improved in any significant way in maybe the last sort of 2 or 3 months. But I think, he came into the roster looking like he was a cut above, and he has maintained that kind of caliber. And then Nedic, I think, was probably the only real question mark in this roster in the more recent times, right? I feel like the level at which he had been putting out was fine, but it wasn't necessarily enough, if that makes sense. And then, obviously, with all these changes, you kind of get a little bit more out of the rest of the guys. I don't think that he's had a significant drop-off, although maybe, numbers-wise, there has been perhaps a slight drop-off of 0.05 of a rating or something like that. Not really much of a concern necessarily. So I think, in general, across the board, it's obviously looked really, really good. Like I said, the map pool changes as well. I think just in general, the direction in which Azza seems to have taken this lineup. Again, can I put it down to Azza? Well, I can't 100% for sure say that is the case. I can't look at it and say, well, I've sat in the TeamSpeak and I've heard Azza say we're going to play this map or that map, or we're going to change this role or that role. I can't say that that's necessarily him versus the rest of the team, but obviously the fact that he comes in and all these immediate changes kind of happen, and you see this upward trajectory for FlyQuest. I think you do have to put it down to Azza. I made a joke tweet yesterday that he's a Coach of the Year candidate, and that he's undefeated at majors. Well, it's maintained. He is still undefeated at majors. I don't know that he's necessarily Coach of the Year just yet, but he's definitely done really, really well in his first stint as a coach, which is really that in itself is probably the most positive thing you could say for an A&Z team in a long time. We can talk about players. We can talk about, Inns was fantastic in, the COVID period, or Vexite came in and he was supposed to be, the next guy, or Netic came in and he was supposed to be the next guy. And you get excited about all of these players, but actually probably what's going to be the thing that will propel A&Z CS back to, the heights that it was at, let's say pre-COVID, or even just to a level which we're happy with. It may actually just be a solid, stable coach, and that may be Azza. Well, it's obviously too early to tell, but the early signs are really, really good. We've always sort of complained about the fact that the trickle-down effect doesn't really happen in A&Z CS because, a lot of our talent gets picked up and taken into the best teams in the world. JKS goes and plays for G2 or Team Liquid or Complexity or whatever, or Azza's obviously playing over in Europe and doing what he does, or who knows? Dexter, obviously came back for a little bit, but we don't really often see these players come back into ANZ, certainly not into the top teams, and bring some of that knowledge back in a way that's actually valuable to the team. In a lot of cases, it was previously players coming back to domestic Counter-Strike and kind of just competing for a couple of years and then falling off and then disappearing. But I actually really like what we've got here with the FlyQuest roster, where you've got a huge wealth of experience in both Azza and JKS, seasoned major veterans, players that have, performed on the top level, at the highest level, and done really, really well. In particular, obviously, JKS is someone that knows how to win big events. He knows what it takes, and he's done that in the past. Obviously, not with an ANZ team, but he can kind of speak to that as a player. And then Azza, obviously, as an IGL that has taken an Australian team to a major top four, or an ANZ core at least to a major top four, and he's competed all around the world and done all these big events and stuff like that. And he can come in and he doesn't have to play, you know what I mean? That's the thing. I think in a lot of cases previously, you would have those kinds of players. You look at like a Ricky or a Dexter or a Ustillo or a Yam, or all of these names. They all come back and they play in a team in ANZ, and they're fine, they're decent. Alistair as well for Semperfi. They come back and they play and they're decent, but you're still kind of getting in the way, I guess, of that progression of the talent pipeline in a way. If you can't cut the mustard in the server in the same way that someone like a Netic or a Vexite can, right? Can we look at Azza and say, would he, if he was in the server, be playing as well as Inns, Netic, or Vexite? That's the question that you have to ask yourself, and I think the answer is probably not. I think it's probably not at that level as an individual at this stage. But to move into the coach role, focus all of your attention on that as opposed to clicking heads. I actually think that's a really, really good shift for him. I think it's a really positive shift for A&Z Counter-Strike. It almost feels like there's a bit of hope again for A&Z Counter-Strike. I don't know. I haven't really been. I've only just woken up. It's the 26th. I've just woken up. I've seen this result. I haven't even watched the Fluxo game just yet. I did watch the other two, the two BO1s, and I haven't even really checked Twitter, or haven't really checked community sentiment. Obviously, everyone's really happy to see this happen, but I just want to sort of see what is the vibe in ANZ again about Counter-Strike? Are we kind of actually we have a team that can compete again? Because it feels like it's been a very, very long time since that has been the case. So shout out to FlyQuest for that. I think they've done a phenomenal job here, obviously at the major, going 3-0. Even in Geographically challenged, Blair, I think, was the one that really championed pushing FlyQuest as a team to maybe they could make it out of stage 2 and get into stage 3 as well in our power rankings. If you go back and watch that most recent video, we did put Tyloo and FlyQuest through stage 2 into stage 3. At the time, that felt kind of far-fetched, but actually, I think looking at some of the teams now, maybe it's doable, right? You have to make top 8 out of this group, plus obviously 8 of the teams that end up going through from stage 1. I mean, we've already seen, in theory, they're better than the rest of the teams in stage 1. So it's kind of just a case of, You beat everybody else in stage one, although obviously they haven't played some of the better teams in stage one. I will say that much, at least the better teams on paper. But even still, some of these teams are winnable. I mean, Tyloo definitely winnable. 3D Max very winnable. Passion UA, M80 very winnable. It feels like Liquid maybe, Ashrals maybe, Navi maybe. I think the only team that's really going to be a tough one is probably Aurora. But overall, I mean, yeah, like FlyQuest, good shit. Can't complain at all. On the other side of the coin, like I said, Rare Atom and Lynn Vision, it feels like you kind of have to sacrifice something to gain something, right? So we've, in a sense, as Asia, kind of sacrificed Lynn Vision especially, but Rare Atom as well, for FlyQuest's improvement, I suppose. And that's really, I think, a bit of pill to swallow here for Lynn Vision especially. Like this loss to the Huns is unacceptable. Like that's just not a team that, I don't even know if we can filter by matches that they played against the Huns, but like in the past, I mean, just quickly having a look here, they beat the Huns comfortably from memory, like 2-0 there, 2-0 there. I don't think that they've lost a map even to the Huns. Okay, they lost the two maps here in the Blast Rising. So there I guess is some precedent. Oh, and here as well. Okay. Maybe I'm starting to turn that around. But like, I mean, generally speaking, I think you would expect Lynn Vision to beat the Huns, to put the Huns away. Their head-to-head against the Huns surely is not that bad. Have a look on the match page here. They have lost, I guess, a couple of times to the Huns, but 12-7, I mean, yeah. You're number 22 in the world against number 68 in the world. You need to be putting that match away. I mean, credit to the Huns, obviously. Like I said, they're the kind of team that has got good enough players to be able to take a scalp. It's just that it was a scalp against Lynn Vision, which was definitely unexpected for them. Rare Atom, I mean, I had no hopes for Rare Atom at all. Like I said previously, I didn't really expect these guys to do anything. I think they've been pretty bad. The only really winnable game for them on paper, I feel like, was that game against Imperial. I think gaming against Legacy, gaming against Game Legion, you don't expect them to win that one. So, yeah, a little bit disappointing, obviously, on the Chinese front, but we do still have Tyloo to kind of look forward to in Stage 2, and they were always the team that we had our hopes kind of pinned to when it came to the China region. Historically, even if Lynn Vision had overperformed at the previous major, the expectation was that they weren't going to be able to replicate that. So, overall, I have to say, fantastic stuff from FlyQuest. That's the real takeaway. A&Z CS back on the menu. Let's see what we get in Stage 2. Hey guys, just at the end of that video and heading into 2025, I want to give a massive shout out to Jean, who has been a big supporter of mine on buymeacoffee.com/elfishguy. She's been a member for over 12 months. And if you'd be interested in supporting my content and getting this content grind going, then head over there as well and check it out. Thank you very much.